Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Thank you for joining this GP Strategies webinar, where we'll explore best practices and innovative insights to help you and your organization improve performance.
So hello, everyone. Again, my name is John Bastian. I'm one of the senior business analysts here within the Human Capital Technologies practice at GP Strategies. And I'm excited to be with you here today, talk about a topic that is certainly getting a lot of buzz in the HR sector and the HR technology sector over the last, let's say, 9 to 12 months, and kind of accelerating on that trajectory. And that is really using the technology area, or the I guess it's really the methodology, the practice, if you will, of experience management, and specifically the Qualtricsxm tool, along with success factors, to really improve employee engagement and to optimize performance across the organization. Experience management is not limited to the employee engagement or the employee focus. You can look at it from a consumer experience standpoint. All sorts of different aspects. Really, any type of experience that someone goes through as part of a process, this can be applied. But specifically today, we're going to really focus on the HR focus and things that people are doing and can possibly do at this point within that HR area to leverage this experience management, specifically the Qualtrics tool, to optimize performance in HR focused areas. So quickly on agenda, I want to sort of back things out a little bit. While it's gotten a lot of buzz, experience management is certainly not a concept that everyone has run into before. I'd imagine some of you have showed up here today to try to get a better handle perhaps on what experience management is. So we'll talk about that, kind of the pillars of it, and we'll break it down as well into its kind of most basics parts and flesh it out from there. This will not be a big technical deep dive, right, on implementing Qualtrics, designing surveys, creating analytics reports. I want to more go through the big blocking and tackling concepts here, and tie them back again to the HR function and how this technology and methodology can be leveraged. And I'm hoping maybe in the future, as part of potentially a Qualtrics series, we could have some more deeper technical sessions, about those topics later on down the line. Once we understand a little bit more about what experience management is, we want to look at how can XM benefit the organization. What can it do for you? So I understand it, but what can it do for me? And then specifically within the Qualtrics success factors combination, those two solutions kind of coming together, and again, all under the umbrella of SAP ownership, which has its inherent advantages that we'll discuss as well. That really brings us in more, not just benefit your organization, but benefit your employees, right? To kind of focus in again on this HR context. We'll talk about that more specifically in that section. And then I just want to kind of point you to some resources that are out there and kind of close at hand within the ecosphere to get moving with some sort of XM initiative, if that's something that you're keen to do. And then lastly, we'll certainly take some questions and answers as we go along. Right. So this is the most painful slide. I'll try to spend as little time on this as possible. I never show my picture, and I'm very rarely, except forced, on video. And as I tell all my clients, I've got a voice for radio and a face to match, so there's a good reason for that. But you guys, unfortunately, are made to see this. So I think the most important thing I'd like you to know about me, other than that, is that I used to be on your side of the fence, right? I'm a sailor that retired from sailing and now makes boats, right? So I support the function that I used to work in for a period of time. So I worked as an active recruiting professional and then recruiting executive for about 10, 11 years. Before I ever went into the product area, and I've now spent about 25 years in the product area, so I'm getting up there in years of both work and age. But that's a good thing for all of us. This picture is highly outdated, guys. I can tell you that I'm going to have to send a new one to GP. That's probably about a good decade old. So enjoy that. It's even worse now. But in any case, I will try to bring a functional perspective here, guys, and not just talk about bits and bytes, but really try to keep it in a business context and a process context based upon my experience. So what is experience management? All right. In its most basic terms, experience management brings about two types of data and juxtapositions those in order to provide this sort of insight into what's going on within a particular process. And the two types of data are X, experience data, and what they'll term O, data, which is operational data. So let's talk a little bit about what is what here. Experience data is how a person feels about something. What was their experience, right? So sometimes you'll even get those surveys everywhere you go. You buy a donut at Dunkin' Donuts, right? I'm from Massachusetts, so it's Dunkin' Donuts. You get a donut, like, tell us about your experience with Dunkin' Donuts, right? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Anything that you do, going to the grocery store, dining in a restaurant, right? Going through your company's onboarding process, going through your company's internal application process, going through your company's annual performance review process, right? So you can see that you can do consumer things, you can do all sorts of things, anything where there's a process, right? You can get this kind of experience information. How did people find the experience, right? What was their reaction to it? What were their thoughts about it? Well, where does that data come from, right? Well, it doesn't come from the same places that operational data comes from. Operational data being really business data, business performance data, profitability, right? Gross profit, customer satisfaction, these types of things, right? More hard performance numbers. A lot of times financial, but even if not financial, again, quantifiable kind of to the number. Well, we don't have systems that are, these experiences aren't bringing into cash registers. There aren't these kind of transactions as people, go through our process. So how do we get this experience information? It's exactly going back to make a kind of a strange analogy, to go back to the Dunkin' Donuts donut thing on your slip. It's the same way that they're getting it. It's through a survey. All right. So the heart of the experience data gathering side of XM is survey design and survey administration, right? And the key thing about this here is it's embedded within the process, right? That's absolutely critical, and it's a much different thing. A lot of people are like, well, we've got, exit interview surveys. We've got surveys that we send out on a monthly basis. That's not it. Those are great, right? A lot of organizations don't do a lot of surveying at all, particularly of their employees, right? They'll get all over their customers and their business partners and all that, but they don't often turn that inward eye as they should. But the difference here is we want to capture that experience reaction within the experience itself. And you'll see this a lot now. It's becoming very, very popular. XM being adopted a lot in the customer kind of satisfaction area with a product. Like anytime you're on with a big provider of something, the healthcare, a big box retailer, what have you, repair outlet, national type chain, they'll often say, "Will you please stay on the line?" Right, and answer just a few questions about your experience with us today, right? Calling into the service center or whatever it is that you're trying to get accomplished. That's exactly what we're talking about here in terms of embedding it, right? So, not waiting, not even emailing it later, but saying right now, right here at the point of contact, tell me what you thought about this. While not a hard and fast rule, most experience surveys that are embedded within these processes are not lengthy. All right. Now, there's no hard and fast rule, like I said, but if you think about it, what you're trying to get is data, right? And the longer that you make it and the more complex you make it, the less data you're going to get. This is sort of the same yin and yang we have with our application experience, right? We'd like everything, including DNA strand up front. But we know if we ask for all of that, we're going to get very little applicant flow. So it's the same thing here. What are the key 5, maybe 10 pieces of data that we'd really like to get from our employees in this context about this let's say application, this internal application that we just process we just put forth? We've kind of revised the application and put it out there. What were their 5 key reactions to it, right, that we want to measure? So that's where the experience side comes from. We're all used to the operational side, right? We see the the reports that we're and a lot of us have to feed into the reports. From an HR perspective, how many open requisitions, what's our time to fill, what's our rate of attrition, voluntary and involuntary terms, et cetera. all these things, safety issues, et cetera, anything that we can measure within HR, we've got the operational data. So if you think about it, the experience side, you guys are trying to obviously create the best possible experience for your customers, right? Your business partners, and in my opinion, most critically, really, your employees. All right. And you want to be able to, and you see that from the example here on the slide, it talks about product, services, cultures. This is really, in my opinion, this is a tool that helps you optimize your culture as a company. Something that all of us in our function are keen to do, right? So not just siloed areas of improvement, but really changing and creating an optimal culture for optimal performance. So the first thing is the information that you're getting back can help you design that, and then through the constant running of XM, the constant gathering of this experience data, and then laying it over the template of the time relevant operational data and trending, we start to be able to continuously improve, right, these experiences, right? We learn from our mistakes, to put it simply. And the great thing is these are data-driven decisions. Oftentimes, guys, we're really stick some fingers in the air, right? Or go with our gut, right? Wow, we changed the application. It just doesn't seem like as many people complete it anymore. Or it just doesn't seem like the people are as kind of friendly with us when they get done with the onboarding process, since we put all that paperwork in place there. But we don't really know. And we also don't know what really the core result is on the operational side. We can't make that tie back that analysis in a hard and fast way. And this is exactly what we look to do here. So moving on through the deck, the experience design and the overall experience improvement, this all goes down and is accomplished through these basic tenets. And I like the verbs that are used. This is the content that the Qualtrics puts out there. I like the verbs that are used here because they're not very technical. They're very business, and I think even just kind of day-to-day language, which makes sense to all of us. Listen and remember. All right. So again, the listen is capturing this information, right, to get it into the experience management platform, to get it into Qualtrics, right? And listening comes down to, again, surveying, right? And you can deliver these hyper-personalized, I like that term they use, these hyper-personalized experiences. And really, as someone that has used tool-based, implemented tool-based solutions for almost 20 years now, where the Qualtrics tool is absolutely a joy to work with. And I'm not here to sell you any, so you don't have to, I'm not putting on the fancy suit and shoes. Really, what I will say that when I go over and I work on my Qualtrics stuff, it is a very welcome break at times from some of the other systems that I have to work in, because it's very friendly, and it really can, guys, it can really smartly tailor the survey experience to the specific way that a person went through a process, right? So it's not just this kind of bland survey. If they answered this question this way, you can follow up with a question that no one else will see. If they answer another way, it can branch off that way. So it's really, you can keep the experience to the user 5 questions, but your survey can be like 200 questions long, because you're going to be able to capture as specific data as you want to, when you kind of drill down based upon how people reacted to your initial process when they went through it, right? And then the remember side is the analytics, and this is what kind of feeds into that continuous performance improvement, right? And you see here, they're talking about you kind of build up this understanding that you didn't really have before of what your customers, your employees, right, other people think about these various processes that you engage in as a business. Right? What do your internal and your external applicants think about your application process? And how is that changing? Right? So, if you put that in place and you realize that it's kind of fair to middle and invest, and you make some changes, now you don't have to hope, right, or wait all this time. You can start to see, are we moving the needle in the right direction? Right? One of my first bosses said, John, you cannot improve what you don't measure. Right. And the key thing is, the faster the measurement, the more accurate the measurement, the more agilely we can react to those changes and get into that kind of continuous performance, cycle, if you will. So listen and remember, and then process and understand, right? So based upon the information that comes in, it isn't just you left to try to figure out what's going on, okay? There is a powerful, right, industrial organizational psychology engine backed up by lots of those people. And I used to have an IO psychology firm as a client in recruiting. It was the most interesting Christmas party you would ever go to. That really was. They're quite a crowd. But anyway, all these IO psychologists are at Qualtrics, and they are basically creating this analytics engine that is running your data all the time and to try to model for you, right, what the predictive impact would be of changes that you could make. It's a bit of a crystal ball, if you will, which very rarely do we ever get in any context, right? I'm always looking for one for Powerball, but rarely get it. Ever get it, or I probably wouldn't be doing this webinar. But when you can say, well, what if we took these 5 questions from this portion of the onboarding process, and we simply lumped them into this one larger question, right? That was all kind of contained in this one screen. What do you think the impact would be? And it will kind of show you, right? It understands how people feel now and kind of what's driving those based upon the psychology aspect, what typically drives people to feel that way about a certain aspect of something. So they can say, well, if you change this aspect of things, that's probably going to drive the result that you're looking for, right? So you can see over here on the right hand side of the slide and understand it gives you back, guys, not like a whole bunch of analytics to crunch. It tells you what you should do, right, in plain language. It's very interesting. It's sort of quadrantized when you look at the output, and it basically says, look, here's where you are right now. Here's what people think. Here's what you're doing. And here's how people are reacting. But if you did this, this is how we feel people would react to that, right? And it kind of it leads you to, and again, in very plain business English, what you should do to kind of modify this process to make people's reaction to it more to your liking. And as I said, the way that I like to look at this, the way that I like to kind of think about this, being the eternal optimist of HR that I am, is to really build this culture of action. Okay, an action-oriented culture does drive results, right? It really does. I won't get political here, guys, but I think when we look sometimes at national politics, we realize that no matter what, sometimes some action would be better than just inaction, right? So I know I've had clients, to be honest, guys, that really they just could not make a decision, and any decision other than that would have been better, right? Even if they were wrong, right, they would have been able to see how they were wrong. This here, right, this solution should make companies much less fearful about what they want to to pull the trigger on something they believe would make an improvement. Number one, they've got data to back up them going in that direction, right? That process engine, the data that they're picking up in the survey, again, very focused on this particular process and this particular constituency of your employees, and even maybe a certain segment of your employees, hourly employees, drivers, temporaries, contingent workers, right? Seasonal, any aspect inside of that you want to, new employees up to a certain level of the organization. Really get that information, and then use that predictive analytics engine. You've got more confidence to say, well, not only do we think we should do this, but the system kind of agrees and leads us in this area. But also, it should take some trepidation away from again making pulling the trigger on the change and implementing it, because you're going to be able to measure the reaction in real time. If things start going awry, we can always revert and run back to where we were before. But the great thing is that we don't have to wait a long time and get old data that we're reacting to 6 months after from when it happened. We're getting it daily. We can see the trending. And some processes are used more often than others. Some are continuous, some are more cyclical. But no matter what, we're going to, the very next time these processes are run, we're going to get more experience data, and we're also going to be able to lay that back over that operational data in the predictive engine and kind of see where things are going, right? So it's allows the organization, like I said, I think a lot of companies have good ideas and they're scared to implement them. And let's face it, guys, in the human resources area, one of the reasons why I think we've always struggled to eat at the big table at Thanksgiving with the other adults, like finance and marketing and sales and operations, is because we lacked data, right? HR is always kind of looked at as the warm and fuzzy function. Like, well, I really feel like this gives our employees, a good feeling that this new benefits wellness program, but we don't have the data. And finance is like, well, it's going to cost, $8 million to implement it. So what's the impact to, employee performance? You don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. Very people are going to be more engaged and healthy, and they won't miss as many days of work. And so we should do better. And finance is like, well, what does that mean? How many dollars out of the 8 million are we going to get back? I don't really know. Well, this gets you much closer to being able to have that same dialogue back with finance, because we can say, well, look, to date, right, when we did this, right, these two parts of it, the initial pilots in these pilot areas, this was the change that we saw, right? This the number of days that were missed went down this much, right? Employee performance in terms of their productivity went up this much, safety incidents went down this much. And here's the operational data that we can bring into the system to talk about dollar values associated with those things. And there's your answer. That's a heck of a lot better than, kind of pontificating like Dr. Phil, right? And talking about how good things feel and stuff like that. So I jest, but really, guys, this is what allows HR to be a business driver. All right. And the other thing that it does is this Qualtrics product is aware of the fact that you are, you've got a day job and you can't be crunching numbers and doing this stuff all day. It does that heavy lifting for you. This really kind of runs in the background, and you get to check in and take a reading, and then adjust your strategy based upon the data that system is presenting. All right. So culture of action, kind of like the end goal of the whole thing, if you will. So talk about the HR context here, right? Just this is from the SAP site on their Qualtrics page. This is, again, the operational data with the experience data to get a complete view of all events. And I love this, is why I put this up here, inside and outside of work that impact your employees, right? Because I'm such a, kind of myopic, horrible focused person. I was just thinking about everything in work, right? Onboarding and, application process and, annual review and all that. But let's be real, all right? And SAP, much smarter than I, says, well, what about the stuff outside, right? Like what's going on with things that, that are affecting your work or time life, balance, work-life balance, or, child care, whatever else it is. You can understand much more clearly, not only just what your employees face at work that impacts their work life, but what's going on in their lives that you never get to see that's also impacting their performance at work, right? They're stressed about this, they're stressed about that, right? They're whatever. And you may say, well, what does that have to do with us? Well, if you could say, we have to potentially do something to address those things outside. What if we changed this, made these hours more flexible? What if we added a wellness program? What if we put a gym in the office? What if we did whatever it is, right? What if we had, lunch right in on Fridays, or I don't know. What would that potentially do? You can really understand where, like I love they say, the intersection of your employees' work and life, and get a better kind of open picture of all the types of employees, where they are, and then create these intelligent action plans, right? So it's a different way to say what I've been saying, but I liked the way that they kind of put it specifically into the HR context. And this is kind of what brings me back to, the success factors, back to my myopic, ugly thing. XM success factors, guys, like I said, XM, the experience data collection, it's all about embedding it in real time within the processes. So it's interesting. I don't know if any of you that are out there are actively involved in implementations, but I just started a new project with a large customer, actually two. And I noticed for the first time that when I went to pull the kind of updated standard workbooks for my area, they now include a tab for the Qualtrics survey, right? It's become now part of the standard, success factors workbook, because best practice will be to weave one of these surveys into every processes within the module that you're implementing where it makes sense. So, the Qualtrics, the company started out focused on onboarding. So that's where I'm a professionally certified onboarding consultant with a SuccessFactors partner at GP. So that's one of my specialties. And so I was introduced to that early, but immediately people like myself that also work across the recruiting management module and as a former recruiter and across the career site builder module, we saw all of these potential applications, and Qualtrics has been, all too eager, especially now under the purview of SAP, to build those things out. So the other part of it, and I referenced this in the opening statement, is remember the fact now that Qualtrics and SuccessFactors are both under the SAP umbrella. And why does that make any difference to us? Well, Qualtrics will work with a lot of different systems, as will SAP, and we hook SuccessFactors up to non-SAP backends, as well. But everything is a lot neater, cleaner, simpler, and probably even more scalable when you have everything kind of running within the same technical ecosphere. And so if you're looking around, if you kind of get sold on experience management and you're looking around and evaluating different tools that can help get you there, I would say that one of the things you want to consider is, well, how tightly integrated or not would this tool be with my current recruiting, performance, onboarding solution? And I would imagine most of you here today are in the SuccessFactors client base. That question becomes specifically who's integrated most tightly with SuccessFactors, and inherently it's going to be Qualtrics, right? So and that you stand a lot to gain from that. Not only that, but the two roadmaps, right, are in sync, right? So it's not like Qualtrics and or SuccessFactors is trying to kind of catch up and calibrate with the releases on the other side. These things are all being coordinated at a central point, right? And so the two products should evolve together over the long term in a logical and effective way. So a lot of information, guys. I know coming at you a million miles an hour. I appreciate it. One of the things here I just wanted to kind of bring back to, remember, as you look at this, this is how you can. I put these slides together more focused on the employee side, but these are, again, just different words for the same person. Give your employees a voice, and then putting these feedback tools into all your processes. One of the things I like, the reason I pulled this, I like the word empower here. Think about, if you do it right, all right, think about what it would feel like to work for a company that, without driving you crazy, right, again, doing it strategically, you really knew was listening to what you was, giving you an opportunity to tell them what you thought about things, all right, and listening and reacting to it. I mean, that's kind of all we can ask for in any relationship, right? You listen to me, you give me an opportunity to speak, my piece, you listen to my opinion, and you react to it. I mean, I completely agree with the reaction, but so I think employees will feel more engaged, more empowered, even just when you start opening up that window to them, right? That microphone for them, if you will, to talk to the organization earnestly about how they feel about things. And again, there's a whole deeper level of this here, guys, like how you design the surveys. There's a methodology behind it. It's not just winging it, right? And the tool supports that, but there's also there's kind of kind of content that you'll work with. And if you implement Qualtrics, you'll work with specialists that aren't just technical. They're really about the methodology of XM, right? Like, how do we ask the right question to get the right data, and also how many, what format, all of these things, right? To make sure that we're getting the best data that we possibly can. So again, I just think that they'll help that culture to even on the face of it. Again, we talked about predictive analytics, right? This is just to get all things I kind of have covered off. The ability, again, it's the real time aspect of the decision making and the analytics that are there, and the fact, again, I talked about it, being more confident that you're able to drive those decisions with data. And again, these automated actions, right? Being able to basically put in place things that based upon people's answers, right, in future surveys or in future processes, can take them to a modified experience that they will find better. Right. So if you know that every time, somebody said, hey, I don't speak English, I need to take the survey in Spanish, and you saw, poor performance from that, you can maybe change the way that is, administered in that other language. and see if that's, and you can make that automated, right? You can just like, oh, okay, that's the trigger. We're going to send it to the new, improved experience. And again, measure on the back end as well. Right. So I tried to get through it in 30. 33 is not bad, especially for me. Again, I apologize. I barely took a breath there, so I know it's a lot of information coming at you, but we've got till 11:45, I believe, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have, about XM in general, about it within the HR context, or even more specifically within success factors. Anything you guys might be interested in? Yes.
John, did you want me to maybe launch one of the polls and see
Yeah,
if we
sure.
can
That's
get
such a good idea. Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, so I'm just going to open this one. Let me know if it's I have seen XM in your work or personal life.
Yeah, I'm just interested, guys, if any of you run into this, right? Whether it be at work or at the gym or at the market, do you think you've been asked things as part of that? Anything you define based upon my long-winded prattling about XM? Have you run into this anywhere out there? I'm curious because, like I said, in my life, it's becoming more and more prevalent, but it's also on my radar because I look at this professionally.
All right, I'm just going to close the poll just because of time, and I'm going to hopefully the responses will show it's thinking about it. So once it's calculating, and should post in just a second.
From the tens of thousands of attendees. It takes time to run through
WebEx is just tired.
This is the same engine that NASA uses to calculate distance and trajectory.
Okay. Are they up there?
Interesting. So that doesn't shock me, I guess. The no answers are high, but it doesn't shock me. I think as I said, I think the trajectory for XM is accelerating. I think it's picking up and picking up with speed. But at the same time, XM in a way kind of lays in the weeds, right? It's not almost designed to be out there and in your face. And if you're not within a certain kind of ecosphere, I don't know if that term itself or that concept is kind of been brought forth a lot. So that doesn't surprise me.
Okay, do you want to do the I belong to an organization?
Yeah, let's do
poll,
the other
and
one.
then we can take some questions? Sure.
Yeah, take some questions.
Okay, I'm launching the poll, but as that's running, how about this question? Is the user experience seamless between SF and Qualtrics?
All right, so yeah, between success factors and Qualtrics, yeah, I guess that's exactly what I was talking about with the SAP umbrella piece. The answer to the question, the short answer is yes, in case I never get to it. But like I said, I work on projects. I'm working on 2 currently. Fun for me, where we don't have any SAP backend at all, right? One's a PeopleSoft install and one's a Kronos install, which is interesting in terms of their master data system, right? What people use SAP or EC for. And we're hooking the SuccessFactors modules, back into that HRIS system. We're going to do it. It's going to work, right? All the data is going to flow back and forth. Is seamless? No. Right, we've got some seams in there. I mean, we're doing it through custom integration, all the kind of things, and it's going to kind of seem seamless. But every time we have a release, we're going to have to look at that code and make sure it's right. Because everything is coordinated here, you don't log off and log on. You don't have a different username and password. Like it doesn't redirect you to some other site. All right, everything is kind of embedded, even within the kind of UI look and feel. It's just part of the process, which is, again, a really key tenet to XM. You don't want it sticking out like a sore thumb. It should all be kind of part of the flow. So yes, it is a seamless experience between the two. And one of the benefits to being a SuccessFactors and a Qualtrics customer.
That's good information. I have a question here about, are the surveys client specific or are they standard?
Yeah, so I guess it's almost a combination of both, meaning they, as I understand that most people, myself included, are better editors than writers. So you can certainly begin from scratch and you can build whatever survey you want. You can also bring stuff in from other systems, so things you've worked on in the past, and then modify them from there. but you also do have some templates where you can at least get a shell kind of structure and an understanding of, okay, I see how we could build this out from here. Okay, this concept. So just giving you some sort of a, or even just a library of common questions, right? Survey questions within certain kind of functional areas. So it's got a very robust library of content that you can utilize, not just in I mean, you could put it out there as is, but you can also then just take that as a starting point and make it your own. So I guess it's a combination of both, which I find very useful.
Yeah, it would be useful for a novice to an experienced user. Can
For
take
sure.
advantage of it. Okay, just one more question. Are the concerns about adding length and complexity to the processes by embedding XM within them? Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's a very insightful question because that is the rub, and I probably glossed over it too quickly when I was making my analogy to this. But my true specialty within HR is recruiting. I'm not an HR generalist. I never was. I'm a recruiting guy, as I call myself around the HCD practice. I'm the dumb recruiting guy, the old dumb recruiting guy. But as the recruiting guy, one issue that I understand very clearly is what I brought up before, which is we would love as recruiters to know everything about you, right? I'd like a complete like FBI jacket on you. I want to know everything because it gives me a huge advantage in understanding which of you is the best for my job and also the way that I want to try to get you into my job, right? As we all know, recruiting is about selling. I got to sell the company on the candidate. I've got to sell the candidate on the company, both directions, right? So that information would help greatly. It would also help greatly, to customize their experience, right? The more I know about you coming into the process, the better I can make it for you. But we've all, been involved, or at least I know I have been involved in, online processes or processes in general, right? Data gathering that are just too long to hang with. All right. And what I will tell some of my customers when I review their application, particularly when I'm going to do a remediation project, is, well, I think who you're screening in right now are those that have no other option rather than either take this application or get thrown out of their current, domicile. Because I would have to be at that point to hang in with this 45 minutes of ripping my eyebrows out that is completing this application. It's brutal. It's just brutal, right? It's just too long and it's too hard to get around. It's the same thing here. So yes, that is a very valid concern. We do not want to have trying to improve the questions that we add to try to improve the experience, make it hellish, right? So again, I probably again glossed over this too quickly in the beginning, but we want to keep, and there's no hard and fast rule, all right? So I don't want anybody saying that, John Besten said that, Qualtrics surveys can only have this many questions in them. But think about how many questions you would be willing to answer and not get frustrated and start just hitting the first answer in the available ones, right? Or just doing whatever you could to try to get by it, skipping every optional question, whatever. How many would you be willing to answer based upon, as an employee or whatever context you're in, and keep it to that? And the other thing too is keeping it to these smaller surveys. In my opinion, it lets you focus on a particular issue. I don't when I'm configuring code and I'm trying to validate that it's going to work, I like to keep it to maybe 1 or 2 changes at a time and then I validate. Because if I make 10 and I try to validate and it doesn't work, I don't really know what broke it, right? Good as an engineer as I am. So I try to make a couple of changes, check it in. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I only made a couple of changes. I know it's something I did on those 1 or 2 things. Same thing here, right? So, all right, let's try to attack this particular area of the process and let's survey about that and let's see how it goes. That I think is probably the wisest way, and the way that you're able to mitigate those concerns about increasing drop off or frustration or whatever with a particular process because you've added some length and some complexity to it with the survey itself.
Great. Great. Thanks, John. It looks like we don't really have any other questions coming through, and we're about at time. So first, I want to thank you, John, for sharing your expertise with us on this
Happy to.
topic.
Thank you.
And to everyone who attended, for your time and attention, and we hope you'll join us again for another upcoming session.
This webinar is brought to you by GP Strategies. Together we can create a world where business excellence makes possibilities achievable. You can access more webinars or download additional resources at gpstrategies.com/resource-library.